Hey, it's me again. So I'm feeling weird and all over the place, and like I'm phasing in and phasing out. Like one moment I have too much energy, I can contain myself. I need to be doing something, and the other I'm laying down with like no. When I have like no energy, I have like no verve. I think that could be a way to put it. Like I really, and like also my thoughts. Like one moment they're here, the other moment they're there, and it's just like a lot. So I kind of like thought that I needed to get it out of my system, but I'm not really ready to talk to people yet, be it my therapist, my parents, my friends, because like the thoughts, they're not very well formed. They're just, the beginnings are there, sometimes the conclusions, or sometimes just like the middle. I don't really know how it started or where it's going. It's just there. But it's also there's like so many different things. It's like I'm looking at things and like new things are coming out of like nowhere, and there's some stuff from the past, there's some stuff from the present, there's fears for the future, because I don't really know. Yeah, like let me just start. It's going to be a mess because I'm going from topic to topic to topic, and it's not going to have like a specific, I mean, maybe there's going to be an underlying theme before all these things. Maybe the theme is confusion, is chaos, there's just how things are connected. But yeah, so first thing that just came to mind, my mom is watching a game. It is available, the Nations League. It happens every year, and then you have like women's and men's tournament, and I really enjoy watching it. This year in particular, I haven't really been doing it, and I think I should do with just me being all over the place, that even like sitting down, like it's kind of a struggle. I haven't really been able to watch anything to like be it like YouTube videos or TV shows or movies. Like I haven't really been watching anything. Like usually I watch something before I go to bed, and then lately I just I watch something, and then or I listen to some music, and I've been watching stuff for like many months, and then like I have nowhere like back to listening to music, because it's like not even like music. It's like I'm getting overwhelmed, but like not really overwhelmed. It's just that like my brain is kind of like rejecting that stimuli. Like I really am craving something to kind of like keep me going, but at the same time, like what I'm getting is not working for me. It's not. I'm not really there. It's like I'm not really. Yeah, that's something else that's happening. Like I'm not really paying attention. It seems like I can be looking at something, but I'm not really absorbing anything. I'm not really consuming it. I'm consuming it, but I'm not absorbing. And that is, I mean, it's not worrying in itself, because first of all I have ADHD, so like this is something that happens somewhat often. Like my attention span is also like not great, so if I watch things for too long, I stop kind of like getting things, unless it's something that's really gripping me. Sometimes I really need to reach a certain point. Like there's so many TV shows that they're great, I know they're great, and I want to watch them, but like I'm struggling to get into them. I know that the moment I get into them, like I'll be able to and like there's, for example, like The Last of Us or The Penguin, or I started watching Sopranos, and The Wire, and what else? Oh, Better Call Saul, Dexter, like all the shows that people really enjoy, and I started watching them, but like I struggle to keep going. So I am like at different points, because all this they have multiple seasons, and I am at different points in each of them. But like I struggle to get back to them, even though I greatly enjoy them. Like they're right up my alley as far as like what I want from a show. And not just because there are other shows I've watched before it that are somewhat similar. For example, like House of the Dragon, I haven't even started watching it, and I know that it's going to be something I'm going to really enjoy. And this is, like just recently that's been the case. As I said, I've been struggling to watch things, but also like in general, like I've been kind of struggling like with life lately, I guess. Because like I was kind of like down, and then I had a little moment. It started May 2nd. I had like a bit of a hike, and then I kind of like went down, but I never really went fully down until I did, and then I was like suicidal again, and then now I'm in this moment, which might be good, might just be the beginning of like, because the last time I talked about this, I was very much like, yeah, I'm pretty normal, like I'm stable. But like since then, I'm looking at things happening and like in my own head, and I'm like, oh my god, I might be getting a little hypomaniac. And instead, the fear is like, what keeps going, higher and higher. And like I don't want that, not for itself, not for what happens after, because and that's the thing about me feeling like, yeah, here and there at the same time. Because on one hand, I really want to keep living, I really am enjoying myself. I feel like I'm getting a grip of my life and figuring things out. On the other hand, I'm kind of over it. Like this is more on the background, because usually when I'm kind of stable, or like a little up here, like those thoughts are not they're not as common as when like I'm down here. But it's because before this whole thing started, I kind of like had, I was gonna call it a plan. It's not really a plan, it was more of a wish. for things to just be over basically. And I kind of like established like I don't want to, I don't want to reach 28. I'm okay dying like, at this point. And when I was having those thoughts, there was like some planning happening, but like since I started to get better, like I'm no longer planning, but like the sentiment is still there. So it's not like I wanna, do anything to myself, but at the same time I'm kind of like waiting, for the moment to come. And a part of me doesn't hate that. I don't really hate the idea of just, my existence ending. As I said, it's not that like I wanna do anything to myself, but if something were to happen to me and I died today, I wouldn't die dissatisfied, which is not necessarily like a bad thing, a bad way for your brain to work, because for so long in my life, like I hated the idea like of dying because like I had so much to do, so much, to accomplish, so much to do, so much, and like the idea filled me with dread. At the same time, I was kind of like, because like what led me to kind of like wanting to end it all when I was going through like that moment was just like kind of like the tiredness. I was kind of like done with it all. And like right now, I still have moments where I feel like I'm done with everything, but like not recently though, because I've been kind of stable, and that's something that usually happens when I'm depressed. But it's been kind of like a theme here for me that yeah, like things are, but I mostly have been ignoring sad things, like I'm just kind of like looking the other way, and it's been working for me. So I have no reason to stop now, and I don't think I will. But it's still there, the thought, like the because I feel like that is sometimes how my brain finishes this thoughts that I have, like I don't want to fucking do this. I don't want to do this, but like I refuse to have to do this. I refuse to kind of like exist in this plane of existence. I refuse to exist in this context in which people are the way that they are, and the systems are the way that they are, and then nothing is fucking changing, and things sometimes feel like they're just getting worse. So yeah, I'm kind of that is kind of like the way my brain works. This is not like news, this is something I've always known. And then for the longest time I wouldn't say it, because the moment I said it out loud, people would be like, you need treatment. And then I did say it, and then I did get treatment. And then even because sometimes like you really you want to kind of like pass this image that everything is okay, so people stop not looking after you, but like they stop paying attention, not in general, but like because like if they know something, you're going through something, like they're there for you. And this is great. I love that I have people in my life who are there for me, but that also means that they are watching me, and I don't have like as much freedom for me to just do whatever the fuck I want. And I understand why they're there, because it's whatever the fuck I want. It could be really bad for me. And as much as I want to see me ending my existence as this is just only my business, I know it's not. I know it involves the people around me, like the people I have impacted. There's a saying, I'm not gonna remember it, but I remember, I think it was like first freshman year of high school. I don't even know who said it. I think it was a local author, at least, but it was something about like you were responsible for the things, which I don't. That's the thing. That's saying I didn't even agree with it, and like I still kind of like thought, oh, it's from like the Little Prince, right? Like you're responsible for the things that you touch. Yeah, like that's where that's from. So I technically knew it before because I read Little Prince when I was a kid, but I feel like that it was in my freshman in high school that I actually stopped to think about it, and just like yeah, I hate it. I don't want to be responsible for anyone. Like sometimes you make the choice. For example, if you want to have children or you want to have a pet, like you're choosing to have responsibility. But like I'm not making those choices. I'm good as I am, and there's some things that I'm like I might change my mind, but like some others I'm like yeah, I won't. But like even if I were to, it's just that it's not just about the idea of it, but like all the practical implications. So like even if I change my mind on the main thing, like all of the things that are required for that to happen, for that to be the case, like I wouldn't want that. Like I like my freedom, and sometimes when you add things into your life, like you lose it. I know a lot of people are going to just jump in and just be like, no, you don't, but like you do. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. So there is going to be a different type of freedom. But I don't know. Like it's not that I'm like running away from responsibilities. It's just that there are some responsibilities I want to have, and there's something I really wouldn't want to have. Like I haven't really gotten them, and I don't even know how to make that, because I'm thinking of some of the fantasies I had, some of like the ideas, the wishes, the way I was envisioning my life going when I was a teenager and like a young adult, and that involved a lot of responsibility, and I was really ready to just embrace all of that. And to an extent I still am, not those specific responsibilities, but like other ones. But there's some others that like I'm just like, yeah, I don't want that, like that, because that makes sense. Like that doesn't fulfill me. Some of these things, they're very like one shoe size doesn't fit all, right? It's not just just shoe, right? One size fits all. I don't know why I got to this point. Probably because I've been seeing babies lately, and I don't know what is it, but like there's babies just popping up in my life lately, and it always makes me think. It never really tempts me, like not at all. But I do think they're cute. But there are many things that I think that's basically why I think like being like an aunt or an uncle, like it would be kind of great because you don't have any responsibility, but you can still be like, oh, it's a adorable thing and play with it for like 10 minutes at a time, because more than that, like it's not for me. Oh, I know what it was. I got my eyebrows done the other day, and while I was there, I was talking, spent the whole time with the like the cosmetologist's daughter. She's 5, and we were just interacting, we were just vibing, and it was fun. Actually, I did enjoy myself. She was crying. She was very straightforward in a way that I appreciate. Some people sometimes, like, I understand why people reserve with their opinions, but sometimes I just wish people would just say it. Like I don't wanna. If I do something that offends you, for example, like just let me know. You don't have to be rude the same way that I'm not being rude when I do something that might be offend somebody. But it's just that I don't know, some people, they really internalize things, and I wish they would just put it out there, because usually I do that. But like there's no right or wrong way. I think it's just like the extremes, they're kind of bad. If you don't really say anything ever, then like you should probably change that. The same way, if you say everything that is on your mind, you should change that, which is nowhere usually I am. I just say everything on my mind, and I understand that is not great, and I know, but it's just that, for example, when I'm medic, I can control it. When I'm depressed, I just don't give a fuck. And when I'm stable, I'm still very spontaneous, I guess, and I still say things. It's just that I feel like things are different. I've always been spontaneous. I always, said what came to mind, and that has been, interesting sometimes, because it's kind of interesting how like you're perceived. Because, for example, when I was in high school, I was very, like I was in my own corner. I didn't want to interact with anybody. I didn't want to make friends. I was just like I'm there to acquire knowledge that would help me achieve my goals in life. So that was like my approach from like high school. High school years, 3 years, so just like 10th to 12th grade. So that was like just me basically throughout the entirety of my first year, and then the second year. But then I started actually making, I talked about it the other day, like I don't know if I call them, I would call them friends at the time, but like they're mostly just people I was friendly with, because we didn't really have like that much content outside of school. We were just there, but like we're spending like most of the time in school, because it was morning and afternoons, because it was regular high school and also technical, and we're also getting a technical degree in business administration, business management, and administration. And it is one of those things that like since then it's been really good for me, like to have that in my curriculum, my CV. It was pretty, my resume, that's the word I was looking for my resume. I've gotten hired, actually. One of the internships I had was specifically because of like that course, and that's something that it looks like, so it does look nice, but I did learn things. That's kind of like one of the fears I had when I was in high school, like am I really learning, am I really absorbing these things, because I really felt like I wasn't really, like I was doing well in the exams I had, in the projects I had, the assignments that I had, like I had good grades, but like I didn't, I felt like I was very by the book. Like if I had to be thrust into like a situation IRL, like would I have like the report, like the I don't know, like the mojo to deal with it. And I didn't necessarily think so, but at the same time my head was very like suppressing the idea. I was like, nah, I'm great and I'm gonna be great. Not like in a blindly proud way. Not blindly proud I was, but like not blindly arrogant. Like I was very much aware that there were limitations, but I just chose to believe in myself, I guess. That's kind of wholesome when I put it like that. I was just believing that I could do it. That's kind of nice. But yeah, so I don't know how I got there. Oh yeah, I was talking about the game. So basically, I was just watching it, and these things are so cyclical, like because they happen every year. And every year, like I look forward to it. Like last year we had, the Olympic Games, and I love that. I was keeping up with it all the time. I was like, let's go. I was very patriotic, even you could say. I wasn't really doing makeup, but like if I were at a time, I would just have a whole lot of like yellow, green, and blue going on. But what I'm trying to say, also like when the Olympic Games were happening, I was going through something mentally. Like I was, when they started, like the first like half week, I was a psych ward, so like that was not ideal. But the games, they did help me. They were kind of like this crutch for me after I left. You know, like I was basing my whole day around that. So the point is, it's exciting, and I get why you'd be excited for it every week, for every year. Same thing with like football, which is, you know, a huge sport here. I mean, sports are huge here, but like that is the number one. Not just here; it's a worldwide thing. But it's just that I don't know. Like I always enjoy that, but like lately, I feel like the past, you know, few years, I haven't really kept up with like, you know, my clubs. You know, the ones sport. Whenever there's like you know, like it's a national team playing, like I'm like, yeah, I'm there. But like the more the clubs, like not so much. And you know, there's something that happened with them that, you know, changed them. You could say that the club is not really in a good, you know, place, but like it has not been a good place before, and it got up and it got down and got up, and like that's just the nature of life. It just gets up, you know, in a league some years, and then it goes back to the B league, league some years, and then stay there for a couple of years, and then it goes up, goes down, and like so there's nothing new there. But I kind of lost the verb free. I think I'm going to be saying verb a lot because I do feel like that word really encapsulates what I'm feeling. And same thing with like this Nations League was something that historically I loved, and even before, because you know the Nations League came to unify it, because you had like a yearly women's champion and like a men's champion, and it was literally the same thing. It just had different names. So they started like Nations League, and even before it was Nations League, I've been keeping up for years because you know, my mom watched it and she enjoys it, and so do I. Like I have many memories of like watching, you know, different sports. Because I feel like football is like the main one. It's also the Formula One, and there's also volleyball, and then recently there's been surf. You know, like all the other ones too, like she enjoys. It's just that there's not as much visibility. Like usually these ones, like you see more of them around. It's easier to kind of like find them too, because everything's about access. You know, if you have access, you make more money. You know, and money is the reason why we're all existing after all, right? You know, I'm just the master, you know, just was born into the system. And that's kind of that. And I think there's so many things wrong with the system, and I would change it in a heartbeat. But I can't really help but just want to succeed in this particular context, you know, because that is such a straightforward way to, you know, account for success, right? Just money. Because, you know, like everything else, it is much more complicated, you know, getting to a point where you're okay with yourself, with the person you are, the person you become, the person you will become, the person you were, you know, and how you got from point A to point B to point Z. And that is kind of like just like this everybody every day, I know. But I feel like sometimes I just don't want to think about those things. I just push them away, and I'm just filling my time with other concerns. So sometimes those concerns can be a puzzle that I'm assembling, can be making, you know, things can be, I was gonna say reading, but like let's be real, I haven't read in a while. But like I know a TV show can come up and I'll just focus on that. This is something that happens a lot. You know, I watched House of Cards the other day. I hadn't watched the last season. I think I hadn't watched the season before that one as well. It came out when I was in high school, and I loved it, and I really wish I could get more of that. There are other shows about political, you know, oh, there's the West Wing, right? Everybody says it's great. I should probably watch that. But yeah, but I was basically, I started watching it, just like, you know, one episode at a time, and then it got to a point where I was just like, nah, I just have to finish this. It did kind of like coincide with my mental health kind of like going down a little bit, maybe not necessarily going down, but being a little bit more chaotic, because there are days where I'm able to really isolate things in my head. I really can push them away in a way that it won't come back, and it won't haunt me, and it won't really be an issue. You know, but sometimes, some days I can't. Those thoughts are there, and they are assaulting me, and I don't really know how to stop them. So I look for, you know, ways to do that. And, you know, usually, you know, medication is one of them. I try to avoid it. Honestly, not even because I don't want to be dependent on medications, just that I know that if I take some of them, like the more I take it, like the less effect it has, and I'm like, I'm saving it for the, you know, like emergencies. Which, to be fair, it's kind of crazy how like I've been kind of stable, and maybe even like above stable for like a week. I think it was like more time than that maybe, and every night I've been struggling, you know, like I'm having to take clozapine like every night. And you know, the other day I had to take two because my thoughts are just, you know, assaulting me, as I said. And it's not just, you know, like that they're coming, I can't control them. It's just that they're coming in the shape of planning, you know. I'm like, just I'm okay all day long. When I go to bed, I start just, as I said, like suddenly I'm done and planning, or worse, I'm having hallucinations, which, you know, one time I was talking about having hallucinations with a person, and the person did not mean ill at all, but you know, they're talking about how it must be fun, and it's just like, I guess sometimes some hallucinations, like you look back, they can kind of like, funny. But particularly these ones that come like not from anything you've consumed, the ones that your brain is just conjuring, out of nowhere. Like for mine, they're mostly scary. It's just like this, also like very abstract. Like sometimes I feel like there's this dark force coming onto me and like about to embrace me, absorb me, and I can't sleep because I'm like just terrified. Sometimes one time I see things on the walls and they are kind of like haunting me. And some things they're not necessarily scary, but like they do conjure this fear in my mind. Like they do really, they get to me, and I don't really know what to do with them. But yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of crazy how I go from like 100 to 0 in like a matter of like what, an hour. I lay down and that happens. Like that speaks that I'm not so well, right? Like there's something wrong that this is happening, but I don't know what, and I don't know what to do about it. In those cases of like hallucinations, like usually it is just medication that solves it, because I'm erratic. The other day, I don't even remember this kind of like this happens often with like me at night. Like I wake up, I don't even remember taking the medication, but I know it's there because I see the little thing. So I know that something terrifying happened as I was going to bed, but I don't remember what. Or maybe I remember a little bit as I wake up, but then I kind of like sometimes you dream, and then sometimes you dream and then you remember those dreams. Sometimes you kind of remember as you wake up, but like soon you already forgotten if you haven't registered it. And then sometimes you don't remember, and that probably means something, not in the terms of like dreams mean something, but like you're sleeping, you're sleepiness, like maybe you didn't sleep well or you slept well, and it's pretty much what that means. But yeah, but like that's kind of like that. So I'm gonna finish this and go to the next thing I want to talk about. And honestly, I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but like now that I'm like thinking, none of them come to mind. But I didn't even finish the thought. The thing with the game I was watching is that it just feels everything. It makes everything feel so inconsequential, because like I'm looking at this and I hear this player playing, and I remember back in 2012 or 2013 when she was first introduced, and just all this time passed, and what has happened, like a lot of things that happened in my life. It's not like nothing happened, but where I was at mentally in 2012, like what were my expectations? Like none of them has come true. And granted, a lot of like those, they were just projections, and they were just insecurities, they were just like fears, commodified into like one vision. It was just like a way for me to make up for my incapacity to deal with failure. So there's that. But like I feel like I did expect my life to be a different place. I expected more, or I expected nothing at all, because there was these moments where I was just like I don't see, so like there's a point I didn't really see myself passing 20, and then I didn't see myself passing 25, and I don't see myself passing 30, but maybe I will. And honestly, like everything tells me that I will, because I've already passed I've already passed 20 and 25, so like why am I gonna pass 30? Even if I want or don't want, it feels like it's not really within my control. But sometimes like like I have taken action, and I failed. I'm here, and like I'm glad I'm here. So I'm glad that I failed in that particularly. But like, and I feel like sometimes past failures make you feel like everything you're about to do in the future is going to fail as well. Of course, like every once in a while, because here's the thing, new ideas come. Like, okay, I tried this, didn't work. I tried this, didn't work. I tried the other thing again, but like it didn't work again. But there are other ideas that come to mind, and then because the things like when I sometimes like like these desires, they're kind of like a cry for help, right? You don't really want to do it, you don't really feel it, but like that feels like the only way. But for me, I don't know, it's not necessarily how it feels. It's just I kind of like just crave the ending, so I really want to do it. So there's certain things that I could try, but I don't, because there's a risk it won't really end it. It would just lead to me having, and probably because of the attempt, having more struggles and more suffering, and that is like not something I want. I guess I just And then that's the question of like, do you really want the end, or just like when you're depressed? Because that is an interesting question. Because obviously, when I'm depressed, it makes sense that I just want to end it all. But what about when I'm normal, when I'm manic? Why can I still not see myself getting past? I see myself passing 28, but like 20 or 30 is like, do I even want that? And I know that me saying this, it might sound crazy, and it might also, you know, speak to the fact that I'm not well, because I should want to live, and I kind of do. Like, particularly like this past week, it's been very enjoyable for me, and also the past couple of months, like I've not been well. Honestly, like since my birthday last year, like I've been indulging myself, so like I have been struggling mentally, but I've also had like so much joy coming from like the things I have been doing, like so it's been pleasant. But that maybe that's that, like I want something more than pleasant. I want something more fulfilling. But like what? Like whenever I say fulfilling, my head goes to my novels, the stories I like to tell, because yes, they feel very fulfilling. Like it feels great to accomplish, to finish writing a novel. I know I want to finish, two, but like they're both great. And almost like it feels like like there's meaning, to life. And I mentioned how recently I had this idea of going back to writing. Maybe I'm gonna do it now. It's Sunday. Tomorrow, like like there's some reforms, some stuff going on, and I have to work on my room tomorrow. So I'm thinking about like not being here. And like not being here in general, because as I said, there's a level of restlessness. But something else that I observed is that like a part of me is just looking at these things like a goodbye, and it's been like this for a little while. This has happened before, but specifically I was talking about my birthday. It's been like that for like a little while. I allow myself to indulge in my little pleasures, as kind of like a goodbye. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do this recklessly. I mean, to be fair, like I mostly washed, so it's just food. I've been projecting anything and everything into food, and I have no regrets, because that is just such a straightforward way to find pleasure and joy. It's one way that depends only on you. It doesn't depend on anybody else. When you're reaching out, on like having to look over your shoulders, like having to be discreet about things, I can just do that. And I mean, it's not great, because I will say I have stepped into gluttony territory sometimes, maybe many times this past month. But I don't care, honestly. Like, as far as all this, I mean, if I don't care about other or sins, I talked about before. I have my tattoo in the back that is just basically a seven symbol. Each of them like represents a sin. Like I'm not religious, so sins are also vices. And the reason why like they stick with me is because like they ring true. Like I don't think of them as sins, but they do. Like whenever I think about people's shortcomings, like our humanity's shortcomings, like you can break them down into like those seven. Is it like a combination of seven, or those individually? I think they really encompass everything. And initially, when I had the idea for the tattoo, like it was mostly to convey wrath and pride, which are, but at the time, like I thought, were like the two huge ones for me. Like those were the issues, like I had to fix those if I wanted to live, like happy and healthy and all that. But I started thinking about other sins, and I was like, oh, this all applied to me. I think envy and gluttony, they were the ones that were next, because gluttony, like we think a lot about food, because because it has a lot to do with food, but it's about excess. Like when you think about when those were kind of like conceived, it was the Middle Ages, where people didn't really have food, so people were struggling. So the idea of like somebody having something in excess, while others are starving, like that is kind of like where it was at, which is why it is so ironic that people can be so religious, specifically Christianity defends certain people, certain systems, certain ideologies. Like it's why, like I mean, I know why, because it's convenient for you, or you're delusional, but or maybe not delusional in the sense of like this person deluded themselves, but this person was made to believe that the world was a certain way, and basically they bought it. But yeah, but like, so yes, there is gluttony like regarding food. It's kind of interesting, because when I kind of like first heard about gluttony for me, I wasn't thinking about food specifically, but it does apply to food. It's just like about, the excess, the indulgence. I have issues with compulsion, and I am bipolar, so like there's a lot of gluttony, during mania, and it's not just for food, it's that I talked about before, it's for, sex, for drugs, for, buying, like, just buying things, acquiring things. So there is like that element, and then envy I don't have to explain. And it was kind of like a hard one for me when I was a teenager, because to me, if I acknowledged any level of envy in myself, it pretty much meant I wasn't happy with myself. I think I was kind of okay being happy with like my situation at the point, because it's kind of like the starting point, and I can choose. But like the older I got, the more like input I had into like where my life was at. So it felt a little bit more uncomfortable. But at a certain point, like I think it started, October 2013. I had the situation. I was with a school project, and I talked about this before. I'm not gonna go into the details, but like I felt envy in a way I never felt it before, which is kind of crazy because it was not even something that big. Like it makes sense for me to be feeling that way because of like where I was at mentally, not where I was at mentally, but like how I perceived myself, how I presented myself, and what I valued, in my life, during like that period of time. But that was the beginning, and then from there, at a certain point, I don't know at what age, I started to kind of like really acknowledge, like, yes, I am envious, and not only of somebody else's starting point, but from like where things go from there. And but it's interesting because like recently I haven't really felt like envy for like other people. I have felt envy for the vision of myself I have in my head, like that version of myself in my fantasies. I envy that bitch, like I envy her. Nobody else on this planet. I mean, sometimes when somebody has something, does something happens to them that happens in like to me in that situation, I'm kind of like, I'm not having this. But generally, it's just like that vision, and honestly, even like that version of fantasy, I haven't really been having so much, thankfully, which is kind of crazy because usually, delusions of grandeur are, they come hand in hand with, mania, so megalomania, it's there in the name. But yeah, so and then sloth. Sloth is also, it's kind of like one that I have struggled with because I have secretly feared like I was, that sloth was kind of like ruling me when I was younger. That was until I learned I had ADHD, started taking medication, treating myself, and I realized like, oh, I'm not lazy. It's just, like I'm not doing things in the best way for me. I mean, of course, part of me is like, why can I do it the way the other people do it? But like I'm way past that. I don't think about that anymore. Just like, this is how things work for me. This is how it works best, and I'm going to do that. And I'm happier, for doing that. But basically, but yeah. So sloth. So there's two missing. Okay, ref, bride, gluttony, envy, sloth. Luxury, lust. Honestly, like that is an interesting one because like I think like when I think at first, like, do I have issues with lust? And I'll be like, no more than like any other person has, because the thing about these vices or sins, whatever you want to call them, is that basically they encapsulate like lots of different behaviors and tendencies and personalities and everything, but they all happen to everybody, in different degrees. So like just I thought there was like no, also like lust for me is the one that is kind of like the hardest to kind of like understand what it is, because the other one, even gluttony, because I was saying like things other than regards things other than food, like it's very clear to me. Like lust is like a little bit more open-ended. I mean, I have an understanding of it, and regarding that understanding, like it's still something present for me. Well, it's not as big as the other ones, but it is present. And I think like that is because it's not like like when you think about a scene, like that is not the middle ground, because you have the vices and then you have the virtues, right? So like there's a middle ground there, and then these are right here. So like if you have anything here, then it's here. And I can't remember what is the last sin. I'm not gonna check it right now. I do have a copy of the Divine Comedy over there, but I'm not gonna look for it. It doesn't matter. Like I wasn't even planning on. Yeah, so it is what it is. I know some people are gonna judge me because like I have a tattoo and they don't even remember, but like I have a bunch of tattoos, and I reached out to my tattooer the other day to get a budget for my next tattoo, which not only, I mean, like, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but like this was going to happen in January, which pretty much means that I'm foreseeing my birthday is November. I'm foreseeing, passing through my 28th birthday, and being alive. So like this is planning for the future. I mean, I know it's not necessarily like the planning that a lot of people have in mind, but like it's the planning that is happening in my head, and also it's the planning that is easier to do, because like this is something for me to look forward to. If I'm going to look forward to the rest of my life being, I don't know, like thinking about work, like just being very miserable. Maybe like miserable is a strong word, but that's the thing. When I'm here in manic, like I am more miserable than when I'm here, because I feel like here I just accept it more. Here I have all the possibilities, all the different things, all the possibilities of the world. They're here for me, and I'm stuck here, and I think like that is, the worst thing, because it does make me feel a little claustrophobic, and in the worst way. I'm not particularly claustrophobic, but I don't do well with like people trying to get kind of like enclosing onto me. Like that is not a good situation for me to be in, and it usually makes me very uncomfortable. Same way that like boredom, like not having things to do, also makes me very uncomfortable. So just let me be. I understand that for reasons their needs. I think my parents like do a really good job regarding that, because like they're keeping an eye on me, but they make sure that I don't feel constrained, like stuck, because that usually leads to bad habits coming back, or just bad decisions overall. And something that my therapist had said at a certain point, and I don't do it intentionally, but like it feels that like I something happens, I do something, and then now people are like really close to me, and then time passes and nothing happens, and then it starts going, I start having more freedom, but then something happens, or I do something, and then they come again. So he was saying that maybe like I enjoy this to some extent, so like I do things to get myself back again. And honestly, like, if this had been suggested like 5 years ago, I would have been so pissed. I would have never gone back to her. But like I see where she's coming from, and I will say that the last situation that happened, I wasn't really thinking. I was actually really enjoying my freedom, and I wanted more of that. So I just thought it's just like a little something, like I wasn't really expecting things to go bad. But like now I'm back here, and I really want to be like out here. And one hand, like I'm frustrated that I'm not out here, but like I understand why I'm not, and also like my thoughts are not really screaming mental stability. Like even if I'm feeling, even if I'm like stable, I'm still like all over the place. So like yes, like maybe if I just let me be and go out into the world, like right now I would do something, not actively trying to hurt myself, but something that would harm myself in the end, which is kind of like the thing. Because I think with mania, it's like I'm not actively trying to hurt myself, but like I lose all the filters I have, so I'm just doing shit that can be dangerous, dangerous in a lot of ways. Like it can be dangerous like physically, it can be dangerous, financially, it can be dangerous like morally, it can be dangerous, I don't know, I can do something that is going to be bad for my credit, or for like my documents, or so, like just they're like in many different ways. And it's interesting because I feel like whenever I think about danger, physical is the first one that jumps onto mind, but the more I live, the more I get scared by like other things. For example, I would like be more scared about, I guess, like losing like my house than getting, I mean, I don't know, getting assaulted like on the street by some random, like I mean, I definitely don't want that to happen, but like the other one like is more scary, and it has like longer repercussions, because like you get assaulted, like you get hurt and then you heal. I mean, naturally, like depending level of assault, like it can be the end of you, it can be like you can be permanently damaged. But like if you don't have a house, but don't have a roof over your head, like what are you gonna do? Because like that's complicated, like how do you do that? Sometimes I think about people who live in the streets, like how do you even start to how do you even I have no idea how do you go from like living on the streets to having a place, unless somebody takes over for you, because like how do you go from here to there? Anyways, this is not the point. So I was talking about the game. So sometimes it makes things feel very mundane and very cyclical, in the worst possible way, because like it happens every year, this competition. So it means the next year, like it's going to happen again. And I do like consistency, like there, for example, like the World Cup. Like I enjoy that, I'm looking forward to it like every 4 years. Like that's fun, so like I don't want it to stop. And whenever, we do have a World Cup, it always leads to, the Olympic Games always leads to me, thinking about where was, the last one. I was thinking about the Olympic Games, the one in Beijing, 2008. I was 10 years old. We watched it at school, like the opening, and it was very beautiful, but I fell asleep, which is kind of like my bad. But like I don't know, I don't know why I thought, why I felt like they even know how far they were, like all the effort that it took to make that happen. I didn't care so much. And that was 2008, and then 2010 we had the World Cup. I was born in 97, so there was 98, 2002, and 2006. 98 for sure I don't remember. 2002 also not so much. Like 2006 I remember. I have like this one memory. It's like when Italy won, and then the confetti just went up, and it's just like a shot from like far away to see all the players. They're not like in a dais or anything. They're just there. So I have that one memory of like that happening. And then in 2010, then I started having more memories because I was 12 and I was more actively consuming things, and I was excited for no reason. It didn't. Nothing happened that year. Then it was worse 4 years later. I mean, I still prefer. We got farther away, but that was the whole thing too. And the next year I was in middle school, 2010, when they came. And I remember, because I went to a Christian school, so we would have this. So every morning, every like the beginning of every class, we had a little devotional thing where we had a little passage. The teacher was going to pray, and that including PE. So I remember that was they separated. Like the place that we went to, it belonged, because my school was associated with a church. It basically belonged to the church, and the church had this property that had like this little warehouse thing that they had two different fields. So usually girls on one side, boys on the other. But usually when we had this moment, we were also separate. And I remember my teacher was very attractive. I don't think I fully realized. I mean, I always thought she was so beautiful. I don't think I realized at the point, like just the level to which I was attracted to her, but or in the way, because as I said, it was that type of Christian, so like you're not supposed to feel that way. But I wasn't even aware. Her name was Helena in Portuguese, and she had children, and she was like, I think she was like 37, and she already had a son that was like an adult. And I mean, apparently she got married when she was 16, and everybody was like, what? That was crazy, because her parents had to decide that way. But because sometimes I think about people marrying too young. I worry about like their future, but in her case, she got married, she had children, she went to college, she got a job, and she was very fulfilled. Like she really was into physical education.